Two kings, same mountain, same blood, same history of loss. One died holding a stone, the other died defending a city that wasn't even his. That small difference is the whole of it. For 170 years, Thorin Oakenshield carried one question. What was owed to him? Would have been taken? What rightfully belonged to his line? And when he finally got it back, the getting destroyed him, because restoration and repair are not the same thing. And confusing the two tends to be catastrophic. This essay began with a quiet comment, quieter than all the others. What about Erebor? He is also an heir in exile. He also reclaims an ancestral kingdom on the basis of bloodline. He also carries a symbol of sovereign authority that predates him by generations. If Thorin's logic is damning, why isn't Aragorn's? That is not a comfortable question. It is the right one. Before we answer it, we need to understand what was lost. Erebor was not merely a location. It was a civilization. Forges burning, craftsmen working, a culture at its peak. And then in a single catastrophic day, Smaug arrived, and a young dwarf stood on a hillside, watching fire consume everything his people had built. That moment did not just take a kingdom from Thorin. It took the future from him and replaced it with a permanent, consuming past. For 170 years, Thorin wandered, working, surviving, planning, but never truly present. His feet were in the world. His mind was always in the mountain. Every negotiation reversed the original loss. Every compromise reopened the well. He was incapable of a fresh start because his framework had no mechanism for one. Joe Montana once said the secret to his consistency was forgetting the last play, no matter how badly it went. Every possession, a fresh start. That is the precise opposite of Thorin's logic. Thorin could only interpret the present through the last play. And the last play was 170 years ago. When Thorin only touched the Arkenstone, you might expect relief. The quest was complete. The treasure recovered. The kingdom reclaimed. But what his face showed was not satisfaction. It was the desperate relief of a man who had confused possessing a symbol with possessing what the symbol represents. The Arkenstone was not an unusual stone he loved too much. It was a myth-made material, a claim that sovereignty could be held in a single object, that authority did not require ongoing justification, that legitimacy was something to be possessed the way treasure is possessed. And symbols, once elevated to that level, do something very specific. They end arguments. Dissent becomes desecration. That is not a flaw in the system. That is the system functioning as intended. Tolkien wrote about deep logic, and deep logic does not belong to any single people or century. Readers connected this framework to Kosovo, Yugoslavia, Palestine, Iran. Every contested geography where the right of return has been used to authorize harm against people who rebuilt in the absence. Restoration as a logic produces institutions that face backward. They define their purpose as the recovery of what was lost rather than the maintenance of what exists. Every adaptation, every new alliance, every compromise that makes the present workable becomes evidence of failure rather than evidence of health. A kingdom cannot be administered by its own morning. So, Aragorn, he's also an heir, also in exile, also carrying an ancestral claim. But what he does with it? He spends decades as a ranger. He builds relationships across communities. He earns trust through action before he asks anything of anyone on the basis of blood. His restoration does not erase the arrangements that formed in his absence. It integrates them. It is not return and demand. He returns and negotiates. The sword he carries is not a possession. It is a tool, and it is used as one. The distinction that matters is not whether the claim is ancestral. It is what the claimant understands the claim to be for. Now, Dain Ironfoot, he does not receive much attention. His reign does not have the drama of Thorin's obsession. And that is precisely the point. What Dain does is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. By the standards of legend, it is almost entirely administrative. He builds alliances with Dale. He maintains working relationships with the elves of Mirkwood. He governs the kingdom that exists, not the one that is remembered. The difference between Thorin and Dain is not intelligence, not courage. Dain dies in battle at an advanced age, which is not the death of a man who lacks either quality. The difference is the question each man is answering. Thorin is answering the question of what was owed. Dain is answering the question of what is required. Restoration tells a better story than repair. Restoration has a protagonist, a quest, a return, a claim vindicated. Repair has a process, a compromise, an outcome that looks nothing like what anyone wanted. We are better as a species at narrating the first kind of story. We are worse at living through the second without abandoning it for the first. Myths are not harmless. They do not sit quietly in the archive. They govern. Someone asked plainly, how do we interrupt the cycle? Tolkien does not answer directly. What he shows quietly in the margins of a larger story is that the interruption is never dramatic. It looks like Dain building trade relationships with Dale. It looks like decades of unglamorous cooperation between groups who had every historical reason not to trust each other. That work does not get a chapter. It gets a footnote. And then 60 years later the northern assault fails, and almost no one knows why. Dain Ironfoot died defending Dale, not the mountain. He died on human cobblestones with Erebor visible on the horizon behind him. He looked at it and turned forward. Footnotes are where the actual work gets done. The great gesture receives the legend. The decades of careful relational governance that made the legend worth having receive a paragraph in an appendix. Read that paragraph slowly. It contains the most important thing Tolkien ever wrote.